I always got more publicity than other people, and it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild
Maybe. Maybe
You said a lot of wild and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And a Kasparian of the Young Turks is stirring up some controversy, which is basically some controversy on social media, where she's basically shown to be what seems to be agreeing with Trump live on the Young Turks. Now, Anna Kasparian discussed with Cenk about the Joe Rogan interview that she says the fact that, Anna Kasparian learned something from Trump, and that she found out that the rainwater in California is pushed out into the Pacific and other things. So we're going to go ahead and watch this and listen to this whole discussion and watch Cenk and Anna Kasparian analyze the whole thing. Okay, so let's get right into it.
Well, Donald Trump did the damn thing. He went on Rogan's podcast for a friendly 3-hour conversation with Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience. And look, Trump was his usual self. And I think in the grand scheme of things, this 3-hour conversation worked to Trump's advantage. I feel that it normalized him, humanized him, made him seem like a normal guy that will resonate with at least a huge portion of Rogan's audience. I also found it to be kind of dull, to be honest with you. It was a little boring, a little rambling. There was a fun part where they were talking about hot pilots. That, I perked up a little bit for that part of the conversation.
No, you got to see this guy. He's
honestly, Anna Kasparian just made that weird. But before we continue, go ahead and smash the like button on this video and share this video forward across social media. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get back into it.
Cenk Cass, he's so attractive. The pilot was so attractive, even better than Tom Cruise.
I was like, hot pilots? Where? Like, what are they talking about?
And then a cop comes in. It turns out he's not even a cop. Starts stripping. It was amazing. Okay, he didn't say that last part. All right, so
Cenk just made it even weirder.
The part we just showed you, that was the best part. You're welcome. Because that was the only part where Joe Rogan held him accountable. Okay, because he has said some wild crap, and he said it to his face. That's good. I like that. And Trump, actually, that was one of his better moments, because when he goes, yeah, maybe. See, that's good. That's self-effacing.
Yeah.
That people can relate to that more instead of being defensive about it and whining, crying, etc. So that was actually the very best part of the interview. The rest of it, I agree with Anna. It actually made Trump look really good. But the huge problem was it was bereft, what a fun word, of all facts. All facts at all. Like, so if you watch that interview, you got a completely misleading view of who Donald Trump is.
I wouldn't say it was bereft of all facts. There were certainly a lot of untruths, okay? There were a lot of misleading statements by Trump, but he also said a few things that sounded insane to me. And I was like, that's not true. I gotta look this up. So he made a point, for instance, about how a huge amount of California's rainwater just gets flushed into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And the reason why we do that is to conserve a very specific tiny little fish. I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. That's not the reason. Like, I knew that the majority of our rainwater was being flushed into the Pacific Ocean. I didn't realize that was the reason. That's literally the reason. I looked it up. So he says things that sound crazy that actually have truth behind them. But then he says things that sound like, oh, that sounds like that might make sense. And then you fact check that and it's like, no, that was complete and utter BS.
Yeah, there was a couple of parts, like of course he's not gonna lie about 100% of the things. And you're right, sometimes like the raking of the forest we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But that's partly because he doesn't know how to speak, right?
So when
again, we see Anna Kasparian and Yuga right there. Anna Kasparian basically admitted that, Trump does tell the truth on things. And the fact of the matter is that Anna Kasparian has come to the realization about this. And Anna Kasparian, even though she still continues to go ahead and say that he still lies about a lot of stuff, but we've all seen it here. I mean, fact checking Trump and everything, and he says a few things and stuff now, and the next thing you know, a year later or 4 years later, turns out he was right about it all along. And Anna Kasparian, I just hope she goes ahead and realizes that even further. But then again, she may be liberal and she's an independent, but this is still Anna Kasparian's political beliefs.
he talks about something that I actually think is a good point. Like, the Native Americans did controlled burns. They did forest management due to wildfires. we don't do that. And there's a price to pay for not doing that. But rather than talk about controlled burns or fire management, he instead talks about raking the forests. So like, if you understand what he's really talking about and what he means, you'll give him a pass. But a lot of people don't know what he's talking about. So the idea that you're gonna rake the forest and that's the way you do forest management.
Well, see, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have the exact opposite problem, right? Kamala Harris is a talking point machine. You can't move her off the talking points. And Trump is so far off the talking points that it just doesn't even make sense. He's like, what? You didn't know raking the forest meant controlled burns? Yeah, no, nobody knew that because those two things are not the same words and they're not the same phrases and not the same concepts.
In Norway, they rake the forest.
The problem with California, they're not raking the forest. Okay, no, that's not exactly it. But anyways, but those are relatively benign. And by the way, if you want to have a debate about the fish, no problem, got you. But at least he's corrected. That is why we drained the water out into the Pacific.
Listen.
So it seems to me that Anna Kasparian and Cenk are not giving Trump his credit where his credit's due. But at the same time, I mean, this is what we expected from them, even with Anna Kasparian and everything. But the fact of the matter is that Trump did make an appearance on this talk for 3 hours, almost 3 hours and stuff. And you know what? I mean, Anna Kasparian seems like, even though she says that Trump is wrong on a lot of other stuff, at least Anna Kasparian and Uyghur both admit that he was right about this. But wait until they both find out about how much other stuff that Trump is actually right about.
I love those little fish, and I hear you, environmentalists who want to protect the fish. I'd like to protect humanity, and I don't want to have a conversation about literally rationing water when like 80% of our rainwater is being flushed into the Pacific Ocean specifically to save one fish. There's got to be another way.
I hear you. That's a debate for another time. I agree with you, but others would debate us because 2-inch fish are more important than humans. But anyway, I'm being a jerk about it. We could have a fun conversation about that another day, but much more important stuff.
Okay, so there was a portion of the conversation that really caught my attention, mostly because of how brazen Trump was in sharing details about this. So it had to do with an interaction, a transactional relationship he had with a member of Congress years before he even ran for president. I will just preface this by saying I posted about it on social media and no one cared and everyone tried to justify it. But with that in mind, let's take a look.
So there was a congressman years before I ran, and I was very close to him. And I needed a license on something, and he was very important in getting the license. But it was a little bit controversial, the license, this particular thing that was being licensed. But I was close to this guy and helped him and everything else. And I went to him, I said, I'd like to have your help. And he said, let me take a look at it. I said, ooh, that's not too good. But I really hope you're going to help. And anyway, he tapped me along for a long period of time and ultimately didn't do it. And I said, you are a stiff. You could have done this thing so easy, etc. But it was controversial. He was in Congress for many years, like 28 years. And there's a reason when somebody's there for 28 years, you got to be sort of smart.
Right.
You have
a
all the
survivor.
scandals. And I realized he was a survivor.
I can't wait to hear what Anna Kasparian has to say about this. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
let's get the irrelevant points out of the way. You are a stiff. Like there's that, and then and then I realized he was a survivor. Like I did not see that coming. I thought he was gonna berate the guy more. But to his credit, he didn't. He tried to make a point about how the guy seemed to be a little more careful because he wanted to survive in Congress. He didn't want to be dealing with scandal. But the point remains that Trump approached a member of Congress who he had a close relationship with, who he had done favors for, and was expecting a favor in return. And that favor was a questionable, controversial license.
Yeah, look, if you're MAGA, you could say, he didn't say that he asked for something illegal, you guys are being unfair. You could make 100 excuses.
It's just a little controversial.
Right. Yeah. But if you're a normal person, you know what he was talking about, right? When Trump says, we were dealing with a licensing issue.
So it seems to me that Anna Kasparian actually is shocked to learn that, Trump is not as mean as she thinks he is. But the fact that the matter is, Anna Kasparian probably just upset like a lot of people on the left because of the fact that they didn't state that she should have pushed back or anything, or that Anna Kasparian is just coddling Trump at this point. But that's just how the left is, and in reality, I mean, when the left is going to left no matter what, even if you try to turn it right. But Yeah, this is all interesting right here, and we're going to continue with it.
And it was a little controversial, and this guy was a stiff. He wouldn't just do the thing that I asked him.
But he was a survivor.
And I'd already helped him out. That's super obvious what he's talking about.
So Anna Kasparian is stating something obvious where Trump actually admitted that, you know, this congressman was a survivor. He was a victim. And Cenk seems to not care about that part. And which is interesting right here, because the simple fact of the matter is Anna Kasparian, she no longer has herself a part of the Democrat Party. She may be leaning left a little bit, but she's an independent now. And it seems to me that she's slowly but surely breaking away from the false ideology that the left often promote. So the fact of the matter is that, no, Anna Kasparian is actually starting to see more of the truth about Trump come out. It's at a slow pace, but she's starting to see it nevertheless.
He'd give him a campaign donation, I presume, and that's a kind way of looking at it. I don't know if he gave him anything else. And then he was expecting for an illegal favor back, and the guy wouldn't do it. And you could tell that it was not the right thing to do, because Trump then said he was smart not to do it. He was a survivor not to do it.
Right.
Because if he had done it, he might not have survived. Why might he not survive? Because it was illegal. Okay, so we don't have him because he didn't say illegal and Rogan didn't follow up.
Right.
But this is exactly what's wrong with Trump. He's a mobster.
But
so he's done this his whole life. And I know what MAGA will say. Oh, in real estate, you gotta be a mobster. This is how you get things done in real estate. But do we really want to elect a mobster for president?
Okay, that is a fair point, Cenk. It's definitely a fair point, and in fact, so fair that that portion of the interview caught my attention, and that's why I clipped it out. But I'll also say that it would be a mistake to assume that Trump is novel in this practice. This is a practice that I think is pretty widespread in our government, both on a local level and a federal level. So I'll give you an example. I mean, on a local level, we literally have members of the LA City Council who have now been convicted and given prison sentences for all sorts of quid pro quo types of schemes with real estate developers, right? And so this kind of like greasing and like nefarious behind the scenes deal making, it happens, it's widespread, and sometimes there's consequences for it. Sometimes it goes on without any consequences.
So I'll tell you the difference between Trump and other politicians. Both, you're absolutely right. Establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans do this all the time, but they do it in a little bit smarter way, so that sometimes they get caught anyway. Sometimes they also break the rules and they get greedy, etc. But the smart way that they do it is, for example, in California, real estate interests will give money to politicians. I'm not saying who. I'm not saying who's in charge. And really though, it's real estate guys own local politics in almost all the states.
I really wish Anna Kasparian would have done what Cenk said and admitted that it was people of both parties. And I'm pretty sure with it being LA City Council and everything, Anna Kasparian probably should have stated that these were, at least some of them were Democrats, or most of them were Democrats and stuff, if not all of them. But the fact of the matter is, like, it doesn't matter which side you are. Like, we've all seen that, people on the right are corrupt, but there's also people definitely on the left and stuff in the Democrat Party who were just as corrupt, if not even more corrupt. And Anna Kasparian, she did bring that up as a good example, because there's many places throughout the U.S. and stuff, people who are on the left that Anna Kasparian despises, well, by the way, where it's like, they just basically, they're just as corrupt and stuff as their political opponents. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you may have this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead and smash the like button and share this video far and wide across social media. And if you haven't already enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Click the notifications so that way you'll be notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.